Every night, he cleaned the floors while rich students passed by. When they found him dragging a body from the lake, the university fell silent upon discovering who it was. The squeak of Jordan's mop against the marble floor echoed through Yale's empty hallway at 11:47 p.m. His arms moved mechanically, pushing dirty water from left to right, while his work boots left wet prints that disappeared seconds later. The cleaning cart's wheels rattled as he dragged it forward, the sound bouncing off the walls decorated with portraits of wealthy donors. "Hey, watch it!" A drunk student stumbled past, almost knocking over his bucket of cleaning solution. The boy's expensive leather shoes squeaked against the wet floor as he regained his balance, not even glancing at Jordan. Jordan steadied the bucket without saying a word. At 15, he learned quickly that being invisible was part of the job. He continued mopping, his muscled arms, built from years of similar work, moving rhythmically across the floor. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Mom's face appeared on the cracked screen. "Jordan, baby, you got a minute?" Her voice was tight, the way it got when bills were due. "Yeah, Mom? Everything okay?" He leaned against the mop handle, already knowing the answer. "Mr. Thompson came by today." "We're—" She paused, and Jordan heard her take a deep breath. "We're 3 months behind on rent. He's giving us 30 days to catch up or move out." Jordan's grip tightened on the mop. "How much do we need?" $2,400. She said it quickly, like ripping off a Band-Aid. "I picked up extra shifts at the diner, but with Tommy's medicine, I'll figure something out," Jordan said, even though his $11 per hour wouldn't come close to covering it. "Don't worry, Mom. You're 15, baby. You shouldn't have to dash. I got this." Jordan cut her off gently. "Get some rest. I'll be home by 2. After hanging up, Jordan pushed the cart toward the next hallway. Thunder rumbled outside, and rain began pelting the Gothic windows. His reflection stared back at him, a tall black teenager in a gray custodial uniform, looking older than his 15 years. The sound of expensive shoes on marble made him look up. Mr. Richardson, one of Yale's board members, walked past with his nose buried in his phone. His tailored suit probably cost more than 6 months of Jordan's salary. The old man's shoulder brushed against Jordan's, but he didn't stop or apologize, just kept walking like bumping into furniture. 7 years today, Jordan muttered to himself, dunking the mop back in the bucket. 7 years since Dad walked out, leaving Mom with 3 kids and a stack of unpaid bills. Jordan had been 8 then, Tommy 5, and Lisa just 2. "Talking to yourself again, kid?" Frank, the night shift supervisor, appeared around the corner. The older janitor's face crinkled with concern. "You okay?" "Yeah, just family stuff." Jordan wrung out the mop with more force than necessary. "Your mom is still working double shifts?" Jordan nodded. "Triple now. Diner in the morning, retail in the afternoon, cleaning offices at night." "That's rough." Frank leaned against the wall. "You know, there's an opening on the weekend shift. Pays $1 more per hour." "I'll take it." Jordan didn't hesitate. "You're already working nights, kid. When will you sleep?" "I'll sleep when we're not homeless." Jordan immediately regretted the bitter tone. "Sorry, I didn't mean dash, no. I get it." Frank pushed off the wall. "I'll put your name in." "But Jordan?" He waited until the boy looked at him. "You're a good kid. Too good to be spending your whole life pushing a mop." Jordan forced a smile. "Thanks, Frank." The storm intensified outside, rain now hammering against the windows like angry fists. Jordan moved to the east wing, where the lake view windows showcased nature's fury. Lightning illuminated the churning water every few seconds. His phone buzzed again, a text from Tommy. "Lisa's fever's back. Mom's still at work. What should I do?" Jordan's hands shook as he typed. "Children's Tylenol in the bathroom cabinet, pink bottle. Half a tablet. I'll bring soup when I get home." Another buzz. "We're out of Tylenol." Jordan checked his wallet. $7.43. The nearest 24-hour pharmacy was a mile away. He could make it there and back on his break, but that would mean skipping dinner again. The choice was made for him when his stomach growled loudly. He hadn't eaten since yesterday's lunch at school. The granola bar in his pocket would have to do for now. More students passed by, laughing and stumbling after a party. Their clothes reeked of expensive alcohol and privilege. One girl dropped her designer purse, spilling its contents. Jordan bent to help her. but she snatched her things away like he might steal them. "I've got it," she snapped, wobbling on high heels that probably cost more than his monthly wage. Jordan stepped back, invisible again. He watched them disappear down the hallway, their laughter echoing off the walls that had witnessed centuries of similar scenes. Poor kids cleaning up after rich kids, a Yale tradition older than the ivy on its walls. The granola bar lasted 4 bites. Jordan washed it down with water from the fountain and checked his phone. 12:23 a.m., almost halfway through his shift. The weekend job would help, but not enough. Not soon enough. Thunder cracked so loudly it made the windows rattle. Jordan wheeled his cart to the final section of his route, the lakeside corridor. Rain lashed against the glass in sheets, and lightning transformed the night in a stuttering day. That's when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong. A splash too big to be rain, followed by something between a shout and a gasp. Jordan pressed his face against the cold glass, squinting through the storm. Another flash of lightning revealed a thrashing figure in the lake. Jordan's heart stopped. He knew that suit, that white hair, Mr. Richardson was drowning. Jordan stood frozen, watching the billionaire fight for his life in the freezing water. The same man who had bumped into him without a glance was now staring directly at him through the window, mouth open in a silent scream for help. The proper thing would be to call security. But the campus phones were down due to the storm, and his cell phone showed no signal. By the time he found help, Mr. Richardson would be dead. Jordan looked at his reflection one last time. A 15-year-old janitor's son in a borrowed uniform, about to risk his life for someone who didn't even know his name. "I must be crazy," he muttered, pushing open the emergency exit. The alarm would sound, but that didn't matter now. Cold rain instantly soaked through his uniform as he ran toward the lake, kicking off his work boots as he went. The water would be freezing. He might die trying to save a man who had never seen him. But Jordan knew he couldn't live with himself if he didn't try. Behind him, his mop lay forgotten on the floor, water slowly spreading across the marble like a premonition of what was to come. The rain hit Jordan's face like needles as he sprinted toward the lake. His wet socks slipped on the grass, and he stumbled, catching himself with his hands. The ground was cold and muddy beneath his palms. Another flash of lightning revealed Mr. Richardson's position. The old man had drifted further from the shore, his white hair barely visible above the churning water. His expensive suit worked against him, weighing him down like an anchor. "Hold on," Jordan shouted, but the wind carried his voice away. His uniform was already soaked through, clinging to his skin as he ran. The lake's edge was treacherous. Wet stones covered in slick moss waited to trip him. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Probably Tommy, asking about Lisa's fever. Jordan stripped off his uniform shirt, leaving just his undershirt. The wet fabric fought him, and precious seconds ticked by. He couldn't afford to carry any extra weight into the water. "Help!" Mr. Richardson's voice was weaker now, barely audible over the storm. His arms splashed frantically, creating small waves that were instantly swallowed by the larger ones. Jordan's mind raced. He'd never been trained for this. The community pool where he'd learned to swim was nothing like this angry, storm-whipped lake. The water would be cold enough to stop his heart if he wasn't careful. "Somebody!" Jordan screamed toward the campus buildings. But the windows were dark. No one was coming. The storm had driven everyone inside, and his voice couldn't compete with the thunder. His hands shook as he untied his work pants. The fabric was cheap and waterlogged, another potential weight that could drag him under. Standing in his undershirt and shorts, Jordan felt the full force of the wind against his skin. Mr. Richardson's head disappeared beneath the surface. 1 second passed. 2. 3. No. Jordan moved without thinking. He ran straight into the water, gasping as the cold hit him like a punch to the chest. His feet slipped on the underwater rocks, and he fell forward, going completely under. The shock of cold water nearly paralyzed him. Every muscle in his body screamed to get out, to run back to warmth and safety. But he forced himself forward, pushing against the resistance of the water. When his feet couldn't touch the bottom anymore, Jordan started swimming. The waves tried to push him back to shore, each one a wall of dark water that he had to fight through. Rain pelted the lake's surface, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. "Mr. Richardson." His teeth chattered so hard he could barely form the words. "Where are you?" A flash of lightning answered him. For a split second, Jordan saw a pale hand break the surface about 20 yards ahead. Then darkness swallowed everything again. Jordan swam harder, his arms already burning from the cold. Each stroke felt like pushing through concrete. The current kept trying to spin him around, disorienting him in the darkness. His foot cramped. The pain shot up his leg like an electric shock, and he went under. Water filled his nose and mouth, tasting of mud and decay. Jordan kicked hard with his good leg, breaking the surface with a desperate gasp. "Jordan!" A faint voice called from the shore. He turned his head and saw Frank waving frantically from the bank. The old janitor held a flashlight, its beam barely cutting through the rain. "Come back! It's too dangerous!" Jordan almost listened. His body begged him to turn around, to swim back to safety and warmth. But then he heard it, a weak splashing sound to his left. "Help!" Mr. Richardson's voice was barely a whisper now. "Please!" Jordan turned toward the sound. His cramped leg dragged behind him like dead weight, but he kept moving. The waves were bigger here, rising above his head before crashing down. Each one tried to push him under, fill his lungs with water. A particularly large wave lifted him high, and for a moment, Jordan could see everything. Mr. Richardson was less than 10 yards away, but he wasn't swimming anymore. The old man floated face down, his white hair spread out on the dark water like a crown. "No!" Jordan dove forward, pushing through the pain in his leg. The cold had numbed most of his body now. He couldn't feel his fingers or toes. His movements were becoming sluggish, uncoordinated. Something brushed against his arm, fabric. Jordan grabbed it and pulled. Mr. Richardson's suit jacket came up in his hand, and with it, the old man's lifeless body. Jordan turned him over, keeping the man's face above water. Mr. Richardson's skin was blue-gray in the lightning flashes, his eyes closed. No breath came from his slightly parted lips. "Don't you die," Jordan muttered through chattering teeth. "Don't you dare die." He hooked one arm around Mr. Richardson's chest and started swimming backward. The shore seemed impossibly far away. Frank's flashlight beam looked like a star from another galaxy. Jordan's muscles screamed with every movement. The cold had settled deep in his bones, making each stroke weaker than the last. Mr. Richardson's weight dragged them both down, the expensive suit determined to claim 2 lives tonight. A wave caught them broadside, spinning them around. Jordan lost his grip for a moment, and Mr. Richardson started to sink. Panic gave Jordan a burst of strength. He grabbed the old man's collar and pulled him back up. "Jordan!" Frank's voice was closer now. "To your left. There's a current." Through rain-blurred eyes, Jordan saw what Frank meant. The water moved differently about 10 yards to his left, flowing more quickly toward the shore. If he could reach it, the current might help carry them in. His legs had gone completely numb. Each kick felt like moving through syrup. Mr. Richardson's head kept slipping under the water, and Jordan had to waste precious energy lifting him back up. "Come on," Jordan growled, fighting toward the current. "Move!" The wind howled around them, drowning out Frank's shouts. Jordan couldn't feel his arms anymore. His vision was starting to blur at the edges, dark spots dancing in front of his eyes. Another wave hit them, but this one felt different. Instead of pushing them back, it seemed to pull them sideways. The current. They'd reached it. Jordan stopped fighting and let the water take them. The shore was closer now, but his strength was almost gone. His fingers kept slipping on Mr. Richardson's jacket. "Stay with me," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to Mr. Richardson or himself. Just a little further. The current moved them faster now, but Jordan's consciousness was fading. The cold had won. His muscles were shutting down. The dark spots in his vision grew larger, threatening to swallow everything. The last thing Jordan saw before the darkness took him was Frank's flashlight beam, impossibly close now. Then his head slipped beneath the surface, and the world disappeared into cold, black silence. The cold shocked Jordan back to consciousness. Water filled his mouth and nose as he thrashed, trying to find up from down in the darkness. His lungs burned. His legs kicked wildly, searching for solid ground. Someone was grabbing his arm, pulling hard. Jordan broke the surface with a desperate gasp, coughing up lake water. Frank's weathered face appeared in the flashlight beam. "I've got you," Frank shouted over the storm. "But I can't hold both of you." Jordan's mind cleared enough to remember Mr. Richardson. His hand was still tangled in the old man's jacket, but he couldn't feel his fingers anymore. The billionaire's face was underwater again. "Help him," Jordan managed between coughs. "Take him." Frank leaned further out, grabbing Mr. Richardson's collar. The old janitor's feet slipped in the mud, and for a terrifying moment, it looked like all three of them would go under. "Push him to me," Frank yelled. "I'll pull him up." Jordan's arms felt like lead weights. He couldn't feel anything below his shoulders now. But somehow, he managed to push Mr. Richardson's limp body toward Frank's outstretched hands. "Got him." Frank dragged the billionaire onto the shore. "Now grab my hand." Jordan tried to reach out, but his arms wouldn't move. The current that had helped them was now trying to pull him back into the lake's depths. His head slipped under again. "No!" Frank's voice was muffled by the water. Jordan felt hands grab his shirt, pulling him roughly toward the shore. His chest hit something hard rocks. Pain shot through his body as Frank dragged him across the sharp stones. But pain meant he could feel again. Pain meant he was alive. "Breathe, kid." Frank rolled him onto his side. Jordan vomited lake water, his whole body shaking violently. "That's it. Get it out." Through blurry vision, Jordan saw Mr. Richardson lying motionless on the grass. The old man's expensive suit was ruined, his white hair plastered to his blue-tinged face. "He's not breathing," Jordan gasped, trying to stand. His legs gave out immediately. "Stay down," Frank ordered, already moving to Mr. Richardson's side. The old janitor pressed his fingers against the billionaire's neck. No pulse. "Starting compressions." Jordan watched as Frank began CPR. The older man's movements were precise. He'd mentioned once that he'd been a military medic. Each compression pushed water from Mr. Richardson's mouth. "Come on, you rich bastard," Frank muttered between compressions. "Don't die on my shift." Jordan's teeth chattered so hard he thought they might break. He tried to crawl toward them, but his limbs wouldn't cooperate. The rain continued to pour, mixing with the lake water on his face. 1, 2, 3, 4, Frank counted out loud. "Breathe, damn it." Suddenly, Mr. Richardson's body convulsed. Water gushed from his mouth as he started coughing violently. Frank quickly turned him on his side. "That's it," Frank encouraged. "Get it all out." Mr. Richardson's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "Don't try to talk," Frank said. "Help's coming. I triggered the alarm when I saw you idiots in the water." As if on cue, sirens pierced through the storm's noise. Red and blue lights reflected off the rain, getting closer. Jordan's shivers had turned into full-body tremors. He couldn't stop shaking. His vision kept going dark around the edges, and strange thoughts floated through his head. He wondered if Lisa had gotten her medicine, if Tommy had managed to heat up some soup. The boy! Mr. Richardson's voice was barely a whisper. "Where's the boy?" "I'm here," Jordan tried to say, but his lips wouldn't form the words properly. The world was starting to spin. "Stay with me, kid." Frank's voice seemed to come from very far away. "The ambulance is almost here." Jordan wanted to tell Frank not to worry. Wanted to ask him to call his mom, to tell her he'd be late getting home. But the darkness was creeping in again, heavy and cold. He heard running footsteps, voices shouting medical terms he didn't understand. Someone shined a light in his eyes. Hands touched his neck, checking for a pulse. "Severe hypothermia," a woman's voice said. "Core temperature dangerously low. We need to move him now." Jordan felt himself being lifted onto something hard and flat. A blanket covered him, but it didn't help with the cold that was inside him now, deep in his bones. "Mom," he managed to whisper. "We'll contact your family," someone assured him. "Just stay with us." The stretcher started moving. Rain still fell on his face, but he couldn't feel it anymore. He couldn't feel much of anything. Through half-closed eyes, Jordan saw Mr. Richardson on another stretcher, oxygen mask covering his face. The old man's hand reached out weakly, trying to point at Jordan. Save? Mr. Richardson's voice was muffled by the mask. Save the boy. Both patients critical, a paramedic reported into a radio. Prep 2 trauma teams. The ambulance doors closed, cutting off the sound of the storm. The siren started wailing, but it seemed distant, unimportant. Jordan let his eyes close fully. His last thought before unconsciousness took him was of his mother. He hoped someone would tell her why he wouldn't be home at 2 a.m. Hoped she wouldn't worry too much. Then the cold finally won, and Jordan slipped into darkness. But this time, it wasn't the terrifying darkness of drowning. This was softer, quieter. Like sleep, the ambulance raced through the storm, carrying its two unlikely passengers, a 15-year-old janitor and a billionaire, both fighting for their lives. Neither of them knew it yet, but this night would change everything. In the lake behind them, Jordan's work boots floated near the shore, the waves pushing them gently against the rocks. His mop still lay in the hallway where he dropped it, the handle pointing toward the emergency exit like an arrow marking his path. And in a small apartment across town, a little girl's fever finally broke, while her brother heated up the last can of soup in the kitchen. They didn't know their big brother was being rushed to the hospital. Didn't know he'd just risked everything to save a stranger's life. The storm raged on, indifferent to the drama it had witnessed. Thunder rolled across the sky, and lightning illuminated the empty spot where two lives had nearly ended, where a boy who thought himself invisible had proven just how wrong he was. Beeping machines pulled Jordan back to consciousness. His eyes opened to harsh fluorescent lights and white ceiling tiles. The air smelled of disinfectant and rubber gloves. He's awake, a nurse called out. Her face appeared above him, blocking the light. Can you tell me your name? Jordan's throat felt like sandpaper. Water, he croaked. Ice chips for now, she said, placing something cold on his tongue. You've been through severe hypothermia. We need to take it slow. The ice melted, bringing blessed relief. Jordan tried to sit up, but his muscles wouldn't cooperate. Jordan? His mother's voice cut through the hospital noise. She appeared beside his bed, her work uniform wrinkled like she'd slept in it. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept at all. Mom, Jordan managed. The kids, they're fine. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door is watching them. She grabbed his hand. Her skin felt burning hot against his still cold fingers. What were you thinking, baby? You could have died. Before Jordan could answer, the door opened. Frank walked in, still in his wet janitor's uniform. Look who's finally awake, Frank said, trying to smile. You gave us quite a scare, kid. Mr. Richardson? Jordan asked. Stable, Frank reported. They've got him in the VIP wing upstairs. His family's been calling every hour for updates on both of you. Jordan's mother squeezed his hand harder. They're saying you saved his life. Jordan's voice cracked. The nurse offered more ice chips. I couldn't watch him drown. The security cameras caught everything, Frank said. You running to the lake, jumping in without hesitation. It's all over the news. Jordan's heart monitor started beeping faster. The news? A doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Good morning, Mr. Taylor. I'm Dr. Chun. How are you feeling? Cold, Jordan admitted. And everything hurts? That's normal after what you've been through. Your core temperature dropped to 89 degrees. We had to warm you up slowly to prevent shock. The doctor checked Jordan's vital signs, making notes on his clipboard. Your blood pressure is better, and your heart rhythm has stabilized. But we'll need to keep you for observation at least another day. Another day? Jordan tried to sit up again. I can't. I have work dash. You're not working anywhere for at least a week, Dr. Chun said firmly. Your body needs time to recover. But we need. Jordan looked at his mother, saw the worry lines deepening around her eyes. Don't worry about that now, she said softly. We'll figure something out. A knock at the door interrupted them. A man in an expensive suit entered, followed by two others carrying briefcases. Mr. Taylor? The first man stepped forward. I'm James Wilson, Mr. Richardson's personal attorney. May we have a moment? Jordan's mother stood straighter, smoothing her waitress uniform. I'm his mother. He's only 15. Of course, Wilson nodded. Perhaps we could speak privately? Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of my son, she said firmly. Wilson glanced at his colleagues, then back at Jordan. Very well. Mr. Richardson is extremely grateful for your heroic actions last night. He'd like to express that gratitude in a tangible way. He opened one of the briefcases and removed a document. This is a trust fund agreement. Mr. Richardson would like to establish a fund of $20 million in Jordan's name. The heart monitor's beeping went wild. Jordan's mother sat down hard in her chair. $20 million? She whispered. The funds will be managed by our firm until Jordan turns 18, Wilson explained. However, there's a provision for immediate access to $5 million for family expenses, education, and housing. Jordan couldn't feel his fingers again, but for a different reason now. Is this real? Very real, Wilson assured him. Mr. Richardson was quite insistent. He said, and I quote, "That boy didn't see a billionaire in the water. He saw a drowning man and risked everything to save him. That kind of character deserves to be rewarded." Jordan's mother was crying silently. Frank had backed up against the wall, his face pale. There's more, Wilson continued. Mr. Richardson would like to offer you a full scholarship to any school of your choice, including Yale if you're interested. And he's arranged for your family to move into one of his properties, a 4-bedroom house in East Rock. The deed will be in your mother's name. The room started spinning. Jordan closed his eyes, trying to steady himself. Why? He managed to ask. Wilson's professional demeanor softened slightly. Mr. Richardson has been on the Yale board for 30 years. He's walked past maintenance staff thousands of times without a second glance. Last night made him realize some things about himself that he's not proud of. The lawyer placed the documents on Jordan's bedside table. Take time to review everything with your lawyers. We can handle the paperwork once you're feeling better. We don't have lawyers, Jordan's mother said quietly. Mr. Richardson took the liberty of retaining Henderson and Associates to represent your family's interests, Wilson replied. They'll be in touch this afternoon. He handed Jordan's mother a business card. Please call me if you have any questions. And Jordan? He turned back at the door. Mr. Richardson would like to thank you personally once you're stronger. After the lawyers left, the room fell silent except for the steady beeping of monitors. Jordan stared at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. Mom, he finally said, Yes, baby. You can quit your night job now. She laughed through her tears, laying her head on his chest. Her shoulders shook with sobs that seemed equal parts joy and relief. Frank cleared his throat. I should head back to campus. Got to file the incident report. Frank, Jordan called as the old janitor reached the door. Thank you for helping us out of the water. Frank nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. You did good, kid. You did real good. After he left, Jordan's mother sat up and wiped her eyes. I should call Mrs. Rodriguez. Let her know you're okay. And the kids will want to hear your voice. Wait, Jordan caught her hand. Are you okay? It's a lot. She touched his face gently. My boy nearly died being a hero. And now we never have to worry about rent or medicine or food again. I'm better than okay. The nurse returned with more ice chips and fresh blankets. Jordan's body still ached, and his fingers and toes tingled as warmth slowly returned. But for the first time since his father left, he felt the weight lift from his shoulders. Outside his window, the storm had passed. Sunlight broke through the clouds, warming the puddles left by the rain. In the hospital parking lot, a moving truck was already being loaded with boxes labeled Richardson Property Management. The world had changed overnight, turned upside down by one moment of choice in a storm. Jordan closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling him back towards sleep. But this time, his dreams weren't filled with worry about bills or his siblings or tomorrow's struggles. This time, he dreamed of possibilities. The hospital released Jordan 3 days later. His body temperature had returned to normal, but the doctors warned that his muscles might be sore for weeks. They gave him a prescription for pain medication that cost more than his weekly salary, or what used to be his weekly salary. Your new insurance covers everything, the nurse explained as she wheeled him to the exit. Mr. Richardson made sure of that. A black SUV waited at the curb. The driver, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Jordan's old apartment's monthly rent, opened the door. I can walk, Jordan protested when his mother tried to help him into the vehicle. Humor me, she said, supporting his elbow anyway. I almost lost you once this week. The car's interior smelled of new leather. Tommy and Lisa were already inside, bouncing on the seats with barely contained excitement. Jordan? Lisa launched herself at him. Is it true we're moving to a big house? Easy, their mother cautioned. Your brother's still recovering. Jordan hugged his sister carefully. Yeah, it's true. How's your fever? All better. Lisa grinned, showing her missing front tooth. Tommy gave me medicine and soup. Tommy, trying to act cool at 12 but failing to hide his smile, fist-bumped Jordan. You're all over YouTube, bro. The security footage went viral. Jordan's stomach tightened. How many views? Like millions, Tommy said. People are calling you the hero janitor. There's even a hashtag. The driver pulled away from the hospital, navigating through streets Jordan had walked countless times. But everything looked different now. The weight of unpaid bills and overdue rent no longer pressed down on his shoulders. The moving company finished yesterday, his mother said. Mrs. Rodriguez helped supervise. She cried when she saw the new house. They turned onto a tree-lined street in East Rock, where houses looked like small mansions. The SUV stopped in front of a beautiful colonial-style home with a wraparound porch and an actual front yard. This is ours? Jordan whispered. Deeds in my name, his mother confirmed, her voice thick with emotion. No more landlords. No more 30-day notices. The driver carried Jordan's hospital bag to the front door despite his protests. Inside, the house smelled of fresh paint and new furniture. Sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating rooms bigger than their old apartment's entire living space. Come see your room. Lisa grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the stairs. Lisa, their mother warned. The doctor said no stairs today. Jordan needs to rest. It's okay, Jordan said. I can manage. But halfway up, his legs started shaking. Tommy quickly moved to support him on one side, while his mother took the other. Together, they helped him to the second floor. This one's yours, Tommy said, pushing open a door. Jordan stepped into a room 3 times the size of his old one. A large bed with crisp sheets occupied one wall. A desk with a new laptop sat beneath a window overlooking the backyard. But what caught his eye was the framed newspaper article on the wall. Local teen saves Yale billionaire, the headline read. Below was a photo from the security footage, a grainy image of Jordan running toward the lake. The lawyers brought that this morning, his mother said. Along with these, she handed him a stack of envelopes. College brochures from Yale, Harvard, Princeton, letters from news stations requesting interviews. And at the bottom, a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Dear Jordan, it began in shaky handwriting. Words cannot express my gratitude. I've lived a long life, made billions of dollars, and influenced world events. But none of that mattered in that lake. In that moment, I was just a drowning old man, and you were my salvation. You didn't see my wealth or status. You saw a human being in need. That humbled me more than anything in my 80 years. I hope this new home and the trust fund help secure your future, but they're poor payment for the gift you gave me, the chance to become a better man. When you're stronger, I'd like to thank you in person. Sincerely, Charles Richardson. Jordan sat heavily on the bed, the letter trembling in his hands. You okay, baby? His mother asked. Yeah, just... Jordan wiped his eyes. It's a lot. Want to see the rest of the house? Tommy offered. Jordan nodded, grateful for the distraction. They showed him the other bedrooms. One for each of them, no more shared spaces. The kitchen had new appliances and fully stocked cabinets. The basement had been converted into a study room with computers for homework. And look, Lisa dragged him to a window overlooking the backyard. We have a swing set. Jordan watched his siblings run outside to play. His mother stood beside him, wrapping an arm around his waist. I quit all 3 jobs yesterday, she said quietly. Good, Jordan replied. You deserve to rest. The trust fund manager already set up accounts for household expenses and education. We'll never have to worry about bills again. She turned to face him. But money changes people, Jordan. Promise me you won't let it change your heart. Never, Jordan said firmly. That's not why I did it. I know, baby. She hugged him carefully. That's why I'm not worried. The doorbell rang. Through the window, Jordan saw several news vans parked on the street. "They've been coming by all week," his mother sighed. "The lawyers said we don't have to talk to them." "Maybe we should," Jordan said. "Tell our story our way. When you're stronger," she insisted. "Right now, you need to rest." She helped him to bed despite his protests that he could manage alone. The new mattress felt like a cloud compared to his old one. "I'll bring up some soup later," she said, pulling the curtains closed. "Mom?" Jordan caught her hand. "Are you happy?" She smiled, really smiled for the first time in years. The worry lines around her eyes had already started to fade. "My children are safe. We have a home no one can take away. And my oldest son is a hero." She kissed his forehead. "I've never been happier." After she left, Jordan lay in the soft darkness of his new room. His muscles ached, and his chest still felt tight from the lake water. But those discomforts seemed small compared to the changes happening around him. His phone buzzed, another news request. Below, it was a text from Frank. "Proud of you, kid. But I hope you know this means I need a new night shift worker." Jordan smiled, typing back. "Know any good janitors?" "None as crazy as you," Frank replied. "Get some rest, hero." Jordan put the phone away and closed his eyes. In the distance, he could hear Lisa and Tommy laughing on the swing set. His mother was humming in the kitchen, a sound he hadn't heard since before his father left. The security footage might have made him famous, but those simple sounds meant more than any viral video. His family was happy, truly happy, for the first time in years. Outside, reporters waited to hear his story. Mr. Richardson wanted to meet him. Colleges wanted to recruit him. The future held more possibilities than he'd ever imagined. But right now, in this moment, Jordan was content just to rest, to heal, to listen to his family's joy echoing through their new home. He jumped into that lake to save a drowning man. He never expected that act would end up saving his entire family, too. A week after the rescue, Jordan stood in front of a mirror in his new bedroom. Adjusting a tie he barely knew how to knot. His mother had bought it specially for today's meeting with Mr. Richardson. "Here, let me help," she said, appearing in the doorway. Her hands moved quickly, fixing the crooked knot. "There. Perfect." Jordan barely recognized himself in the mirror. The new suit fit perfectly. No hand-me-downs or thrift store compromises. His work boots had been replaced by leather shoes that didn't pinch his toes. "You don't have to be nervous," his mother said, smoothing his collar. "I'm not nervous," Jordan lied. "It's just weird. Last time I saw him, I was dragging him out of a lake. A black car pulled up outside, the same one that had brought them home from the hospital. This time, Jordan managed the walk from the house without help, though his muscles still protested. The drive to Yale took less than 15 minutes. Campus looked different in daylight, without rain and terror distorting everything. Students walked past the lake where it had happened, probably unaware they were passing the spot where two lives had nearly ended. The car stopped in front of Richardson Hall, named after the man Jordan was about to meet. A secretary met them in the lobby, leading them to an elevator Jordan had cleaned but never ridden. "Mr. Richardson is waiting in the boardroom," she said, ushering them into a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows. "Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" Before they could answer, the door opened again. Mr. Richardson walked in, leaning slightly on a cane. His face had more color than the last time Jordan had seen it, but he looked older somehow. More human. "Jordan," the old man said, his voice stronger than Jordan expected. "And Mrs. Taylor. Please sit." They took seats at the massive conference table. Jordan's tie felt too tight. "First," Mr. Richardson began, "I want to apologize for not meeting sooner. My doctors were insistent about rest." "No apology needed," Jordan's mother said. "We understand." Mr. Richardson's eyes fixed on Jordan. "Do you know why I was by the lake that night?" Jordan shook his head. "I was angry," the billionaire said quietly. "The board had questioned some of my decisions. Me, the man who'd given this university millions. I came out to clear my head, despite the storm. Arrogance, pure and simple." He tapped his cane against the floor. "I've been on this board for 30 years. Walked these halls thousands of times. Never once noticed the people who kept them clean. Never saw them as people." Jordan shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, you don't have to dash." "Yes, I do," Mr. Richardson interrupted. Because that night, when I was drowning, status meant nothing. Money meant nothing. And the person who saved me wasn't another billionaire or board member. It was a 15-year-old janitor who had every reason to let me drown. I wouldn't do that, Jordan said firmly. I know. Mr. Richardson smiled slightly. That's what makes you extraordinary. You didn't see Charles Richardson, Yale board member and billionaire. You saw a drowning man and acted without hesitation. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. The trust fund and house are just the beginning. I've established a scholarship foundation in your name, the Jordan Taylor Hero Fund. It will provide full rides to Yale for students from working-class families. Jordan's mother gasped softly. Additionally, Mr. Richardson continued, I'm creating a fund to ensure all Yale maintenance staff receive living wages and full benefits. No one who works here should struggle to support their family. He pushed the envelope across the table. And this is personal. A check to cover any immediate expenses while the trust fund paperwork is finalized. Jordan looked at the check and felt dizzy. The amount had more zeros than he'd ever seen. Sir, his mother began. This is too much, It's not enough, Mr. Richardson cut in. Your son didn't just save my life. He saved my soul. Made me see how blind I'd been to the struggles of others. He turned back to Jordan. The lawyers tell me you haven't done any media interviews yet. No, sir, Jordan replied. It didn't feel right talking about it. Good man, but your story needs to be told. Not for fame or glory, but because people need reminding that heroism doesn't come with a price tag. That character matters more than status. A knock at the door interrupted them. Frank entered, still in his janitor's uniform. Sorry I'm late, he said. Had to finish my rounds. Nonsense. Mr. Richardson stood to shake Frank's hand. You're the other hero of this story. Without you, neither of us would be here. Frank looked uncomfortable with the praise. Just did what anyone would do. That's what they both say, Mr. Richardson told Jordan's mother. Two men who risked everything to save a foolish old billionaire, and both claim it was nothing special. He picked up his cane. Frank, I assume you received the promotion offer? Yes, sir, Frank nodded. Head of maintenance operations. Still getting used to the idea. Good, because I'll need your help implementing the new wage policies. Mr. Richardson turned to Jordan. And you, young man, have a decision to make. Sir, Yale would be honored to have you as a student. But the scholarship offers from Harvard and Princeton are equally valid. Your future is yours to choose. Jordan hadn't even opened those letters yet. The idea of attending any of these universities still felt unreal. I need time to think about it, he said honestly. Of course, Mr. Richardson smiled. You have a wisdom beyond your years, Jordan. Take time to heal, to be with your family. The future will wait. As they stood to leave, Mr. Richardson held out his hand. Jordan took it, noticing how the old man's grip trembled slightly. Thank you, Mr. Richardson said simply. For everything? In the elevator going down, Jordan's mother wiped her eyes. You okay, baby? Yeah, Jordan said, just thinking about how different everything is now. Frank rode down with them. Life's funny that way. One moment can change everything. They walked through the lobby together. The former janitor, the promoted supervisor, and the mother whose children would never worry about food or rent again. Outside, students rushed to class, barely noticing them. Just like before. But now Jordan knew that invisibility was a choice. That anyone could matter, could make a difference regardless of their position. The black car waited to take them home. Their new home, where Tommy and Lisa were probably doing homework on their new computers, in their own rooms, with full bellies and warm beds waiting. Ready? His mother asked. Jordan looked back at Richardson Hall, at the lake beyond it. A week ago, he'd been pushing a mop through these halls, dreading another eviction notice. Now he stood in the sunshine, a hero's check in his pocket, and a future bright with possibilities. But more importantly, his family was safe, happy, secure. Yeah, he said, getting into the car. I'm ready. The morning show host's smile looked practiced as she faced the camera. Today we have an exclusive interview with Jordan Taylor, the teenage janitor who made headlines after saving billionaire Charles Richardson from drowning. Jordan, welcome to Good Morning America. Jordan sat stiffly in the studio chair, the bright lights making him sweat in his new suit. His mother squeezed his hand from just off camera. "Thank you for having me," he managed. "The security footage of your rescue has over 10 million views now," the host said. "What was going through your mind when you saw Mr. Richardson in the lake?" "Nothing complicated," Jordan replied honestly. "Someone was drowning. I could help. That's all." But this wasn't just anyone. This was Charles Richardson, one of the wealthiest men in Connecticut. Did you know who he was? He was just a person who needed help. Jordan's voice grew firmer. His bank account didn't matter when he was drowning. The host leaned forward. "Sources say Mr. Richardson has set up a $20 million trust fund for you and your family. How has that changed your life?" Jordan thought about the reporters camped outside their new house, the constant phone calls, the way some people at school now treated him differently. "The money helped my family," he said carefully. "My mom doesn't have to work 3 jobs anymore. My sister got the medicine she needed. But that's not why I did it." "Would you have done the same thing if it had been anyone else in that lake?" "Yes." Jordan didn't hesitate. "And I hope someone would do the same for me." After the interview, in the green room, his mother hugged him. "You did great, baby." Jordan loosened his tie. "Can we go home now?" "One more interview this afternoon," she reminded him. "Then you're done. No more media." The next interview was with a local news station, filming at their new house. Lisa and Tommy sat with Jordan on the porch swing while the reporters set up her equipment. "Did you see me on TV?" Lisa asked, bouncing excitedly. "You were sleeping," Tommy reminded her. "It was too early." "Jordan," the reporter called. "Ready to begin?" The questions were similar. How did it feel to be a hero? What would he do with the money? Had his life changed? Jordan gave the same honest answers. The camera caught Lisa climbing into his lap, Tommy trying to act cool, but beaming with pride at his brother. "Your father contacted us," the reporter said suddenly. "He'd like to reconnect Dash." No comment. Jordan's mother cut in sharply. "That's not part of this story." Later that night, after the cameras left and Lisa was asleep, Jordan found Tommy in the study room, staring at the computer screen. "You okay?" Jordan asked. "Dad's trying to friend me on Facebook," Tommy said quietly. "Says he's proud of us." Jordan sat beside his brother. "You don't have to respond." "I know." Tommy closed the browser. "He didn't care about us when we were poor. Why should we care about him now?" Upstairs, Jordan heard his mother on the phone, probably with the lawyers again. The trust fund came with a team of financial advisors, all working to protect their newfound wealth from opportunists, including absent fathers who suddenly remembered they had children. Jordan's phone buzzed with another interview request. He deleted it without reading. The story had been told enough times. The next morning, Jordan walked into Yale's maintenance department. Frank looked up from his new desk, surprised. "What are you doing here, kid? You don't work here anymore." "I know," Jordan said, "but I wanted to return this." He placed his old uniform on the desk. Frank picked it up, keeping it clean till the very end, huh? "Seemed right." Jordan paused. "How are the new policies going? Better wages, health insurance, educational benefits for workers, kids." Frank smiled. Mr. Richardson wasn't kidding about changes. "Good." Jordan turned to leave, then stopped. "You know what's weird? I kind of miss it. The quiet nights, just me and my mop." "That's because you're crazy," Frank laughed. "But I get it. Sometimes the simplest jobs have the most dignity." Outside, the lake sparkled in the morning sun. Students hurried to class, some giving Jordan double takes as they recognized him from TV. His phone buzzed again. Tommy, asking if he'd pick up Lisa from her new school. Their mother had a meeting with the trust fund managers. Normal things. Family things. The kind of problems they could handle now. Jordan walked to his car, a modest used Honda, despite the dealer trying to sell him something flashier. Some changes he wasn't ready for yet. At Lisa's school, the other parents whispered and pointed. His sister ran out with a drawing clutched in her hand. "Look," she held up the paper. "I drew our new house." The crayon picture showed 4 stick figures standing in front of a big house. No more stick figure of their father. No empty space where he should be. Just their family of 4, complete and happy. "It's perfect," Jordan said, helping her buckle up. "Want to get ice cream? Can we afford it?" Lisa asked automatically, then giggled. "Oh yeah, we're rich now." Jordan glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "We're secure now," he corrected gently. "There's a difference." At the ice cream shop, the server recognized him. "Hey, Aren't you that hero kid from the news? Just a regular kid getting ice cream with his sister, Jordan replied. Lisa got chocolate with extra sprinkles. Jordan chose vanilla. Some habits of careful spending died hard. His phone buzzed yet again. This time it was Mr. Richardson's office, confirming their weekly lunch meeting. The old man had insisted on mentoring Jordan, preparing him for college and beyond. Jordan? Lisa asked, chocolate smeared on her chin. Are you going to be a janitor when you grow up? No, probably not. He handed her a napkin. But I'm glad I was one. It taught me important things. Like what? Jordan thought about it. Like how every job matters. How you should help people even if they don't see you. How being invisible doesn't make you less important. You're not invisible anymore, Lisa pointed out. You're on TV. Fame fades, Jordan said, quoting something Frank had told him. Character lasts? His phone buzzed one more time, a text from his mother. College counselor here. Says Yale wants your decision by next week. Jordan looked out the window at the city he'd grown up in. The streets he'd walked to work, the buildings he'd cleaned, the people who'd looked through him. Nothing had changed, really. The world was the same. He was the same person who'd run toward danger to help a stranger. The only difference was now people could see him. Really see him. Ready to go home? He asked Lisa. She nodded, chocolate ice cream dripping onto her new dress. Jordan grabbed more napkins, remembering how they used to have to make clothes last, how stains were a crisis when you couldn't afford replacements. Now they had choices, options. But Jordan was determined not to let those choices change who they were, a family that had survived hard times together, that knew the value of work and the importance of seeing people, really seeing them. As they drove home, Lisa fell asleep in her booster seat. Jordan took the long way, past their old apartment building where Mrs. Rodriguez still waved from her window, past the diner where his mother used to work double shifts, past the lake that had changed everything. The world looked different from behind the wheel of a car instead of through the windows he used to clean. But Jordan was grateful he'd seen both views. It made the new view mean so much more. Jordan sat in Yale's admissions office, staring at the acceptance letter in his hands. The dean of admissions waited patiently across the desk, while Mr. Richardson sat in a chair by the window. Full academic scholarship, the dean explained. Separate from Mr. Richardson's trust fund. You earned this on your own merit, Jordan. Jordan read his SAT scores again. They weren't perfect, but they were strong. The result of studying during quiet moments on his night shift, of learning math while counting inventory, of reading literature between cleaning rounds. Your essays impressed the whole committee, the dean continued. Particularly the one about working as a janitor. I just wrote the truth, Jordan said. That's why it was powerful. The dean leaned forward. Yale needs students like you, Jordan. Students who understand the value of hard work, who see people others might miss. Mr. Richardson cleared his throat. The choice is still yours, son. Harvard and Princeton are still options. Jordan looked out the window. From this office, he could see the lake. 2 months had passed since that stormy night, but he still remembered the cold, the fear, the certainty that he had to act. I want Yale, he said firmly. This is where I belong. After the meeting, Mr. Richardson walked with him across campus. The old man's cane clicked against the sidewalk. You know, Mr. Richardson said, some people think I influenced the admissions committee. Did you? Didn't have to. The billionaire stopped, facing Jordan. Your grades, your test scores, your character. They speak for themselves. The money I gave your family wasn't about buying your way in. It was about making sure you had the chance to show your true potential. They reached the lake. A plaque had been installed near the spot where Jordan had jumped in. It read, on this site, on October 15th, 2024, a 15-year-old janitor named Jordan Taylor reminded us that heroism knows no social boundaries. I still don't feel like a hero, Jordan admitted. That's exactly why you are one. Mr. Richardson gestured to a bench. Sit with an old man for a moment? They sat, watching students cross campus. Some nodded respectfully at Jordan. His face was still recognizable from the news coverage. I've been thinking about legacy, Mr. Richardson said. I'll put my name on buildings, funded research, shaped policy. But what will people really remember about me? They'll remember you changed things, Jordan said. The new worker benefits, the scholarship fund dash. They'll remember I needed a teenage janitor to teach me how to be human again. Mr. Richardson smiled slightly. And that's a better legacy than any building with my name on it. Jordan's phone buzzed, a text from Tommy. Mom's crying again. Everything okay? Mr. Richardson asked, noting Jordan's concerned expression. Yeah, just my mom does that sometimes now. Happy tears, she says. Still getting used to not having to worry all the time. It takes time to adjust to change, Mr. Richardson said. Even good change? Jordan thought about their new house. How his mother still bought generic brands out of habit. How Lisa hoarded food in her room because she wasn't quite convinced it would always be there. We're working on it, he said. Speaking of work, Mr. Richardson pulled an envelope from his jacket. Frank suggested this, and I agree. Jordan opened it. Inside was a job offer, student building manager, Yale Facilities Department. Part-time, flexible around your classes, Mr. Richardson explained. Frank says you know the buildings better than anyone. We need someone to help implement the new worker policies, to be a bridge between administration and staff. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to help others like yourself. To make sure no one who works here feels invisible again. Jordan read the salary. More than fair for a part-time college job. But it wasn't about the money anymore. When do I start? Fall semester. Mr. Richardson stood, leaning on his cane. Unless you'd rather focus solely on studies? No, Jordan said quickly. I want to work. Need to. Actually, need to. Not for money. Jordan struggled to explain. But working grounds you. Reminds you who you are. Mr. Richardson nodded approvingly. You're going to go far, Jordan Taylor. Just don't forget where you started. Never, Jordan promised. At home that evening, Jordan found his mother in the kitchen, wiping her eyes while making dinner. Happy tears again, he asked, hugging her from behind. Found an old grocery list, she explained. From before. It had all these calculations in the margins, trying to figure out how to buy food and pay rent with $30. Jordan remembered those lists. Remembered watching his mother at the kitchen table late at night, moving numbers around like puzzle pieces that never quite fit. Tommy got an A on his science project, she continued. The one we could afford all the materials for. And Lisa's teacher says she's reading above grade level now. Because she can see the board with her new glasses, Jordan finished. Everything's different. She turned to face him. Sometimes I wake up thinking it was all a dream. That we're still in the old apartment, still counting pennies. It's real, Mom. Jordan showed her the Yale letter. All of it. She read it slowly, tears falling on the paper. My baby's going to Yale. As a student this time, Jordan said. Not a janitor. You were never just a janitor. She touched his face. You were always meant for more. I just couldn't give it to you before. You gave me everything important, Jordan said firmly. You taught us dignity, hard work, helping others. Money can't buy that. The front door opened. Tommy and Lisa returning from their after-school programs they couldn't have afforded 2 months ago. Jordan? Lisa ran in, waving a paper. I got the lead in the school play. The one that needs costumes? Their mother asked. The expensive ones? Lisa's face fell slightly old habits. Maybe I shouldn't dash. Show me the costume list, Jordan interrupted. We'll go shopping this weekend. Lisa's smile could have lit up their old apartment building. She hugged him tight, then ran upstairs to practice her lines. Tommy lingered in the kitchen doorway. Dad called again. The room went quiet. Their mother gripped the counter hard. What did you tell him? Jordan asked. That he lost the right to call himself our father 7 years ago. Tommy's voice was steady. They were doing fine without him. Their mother pulled Tommy into a hug. When did you get so grown up? Learn from the best, Tommy said, glancing at Jordan. Jordan's phone buzzed, a text from Frank. Staff meeting tomorrow. Need the new student manager there. He smiled, typing back. Wouldn't miss it. Some things were changing, addresses, bank accounts, opportunities. But the important things stayed the same. Family. Work ethic. The ability to see people as people, regardless of their status or wealth. Outside, the sun was setting over their new neighborhood. Through the kitchen window, Jordan could see Lisa on her swing set, Tommy doing homework on the patio, their mother cooking dinner without checking prices or counting coins. This was what he'd really saved that night in the lake. Not just Mr. Richardson's life, but his family's future. Their chance to be more than survivors, to actually live. The Yale acceptance letter sat on the counter, promising more changes ahead. But Jordan wasn't worried. He knew who he was, where he came from, what mattered. Some people thought money changed everything. Jordan knew better. Character. That's what really changed lives. Both his and Mr. Richardson's that stormy night. And character, unlike money, couldn't be given or taken away. It had to be earned, one choice at a time. 3 months after the rescue, Jordan stood in front of Yale's freshman orientation class, wearing a suit that no longer felt strange on his shoulders. 600 students filled the auditorium, all looking up at him. "Most of you know me as the janitor who saved Charles Richardson," Jordan began. "But that's not why I'm here today." He glanced at Mr. Richardson, who sat in the front row, nodding encouragingly. "I'm here because next semester, I'll be one of you. A Yale freshman. Not because I saved someone, but because I worked for it. Because people finally saw what I was capable of when they stopped looking past me." The room was silent. Even the students who'd been checking their phones looked up. "3 months ago, I cleaned these halls at night. I watched students like you walk past without seeing me. I'm not angry about that. It's human nature to overlook people who seem unimportant to your life." Jordan stepped away from the podium, walking to the edge of the stage. "But here's what I learned from being invisible. Everyone matters. The janitor who keeps your dorm clean. The cafeteria worker who serves your food. The maintenance staff who keep this beautiful campus running. They all have stories, dreams, families." He saw Frank at the back of the auditorium, now wearing a supervisor's blazer instead of a janitor's uniform. "Thanks to Mr. Richardson's generosity, my family's life has changed. But money isn't what makes a person valuable. Character is, and character shows in how you treat people, especially people you think can't help or hurt you." Jordan picked up a familiar object from behind the podium, his old mop. "This was my work tool 3 months ago. Now it's a reminder. A reminder that dignity doesn't come from what you own or what you do. It comes from how you live, how you treat others, how you face challenges." He set the mop against the podium. "When you walk around campus, try something for me. See people. Really see them. Learn their names. Ask their stories. Because you never know, that person you're looking past today might be sitting next to you in class tomorrow." After the speech, Mr. Richardson walked him to the maintenance office, where Frank had organized a small celebration. "Not bad for a former janitor," Frank said, handing Jordan a coffee. "Still a janitor at heart," Jordan replied. "Just with better hours now." The maintenance staff, his former co-workers, had brought a cake. "Congratulations, future freshman," written in blue icing. "Speech was good, kid," one of the older janitors said. "But you forgot something important." "What's that?" "You didn't just change our pay and benefits. You changed how people see us. Made us visible." Jordan's phone buzzed, his mother, reminding him about Lisa's school play tonight. She was playing Annie, with a real costume instead of homemade clothes. "Got to go," he said. "Family thing. Go." Frank waved him off. Some things are more important than work. At the elementary school, Jordan found his mother already saving seats in the front row. Tommy sat beside her, recording everything with his new camera. "Did the speech go okay?" she whispered as Jordan sat down. "Think so." He loosened his tie. Weird being on the other side of the podium. The lights dimmed, and Lisa appeared on stage. Her costume sparkled under the lights. No more cardboard and construction paper props. Jordan watched his sister sing "Tomorrow" with perfect confidence. No trace of the shy girl who used to hide behind him when things got tough. Tommy filmed it all, occasionally wiping his eyes when he thought no one was looking. Their mother didn't bother hiding her tears. After the show, in the school parking lot, a reporter approached them. "Jordan Taylor? Any comment on the new Yale scholarship program named after you?" "Just that I hope it helps other kids like me," Jordan said. "Kids who have the ability but need an opportunity." At home, Lisa changed out of her costume but kept the red Annie wig on. She danced around the living room, still high on applause and success. "You're going to wrinkle your costume," their mother warned. "It's okay," Lisa said. "We can afford dry cleaning now." The simple statement hit Jordan hard. They could afford things now. Not just necessities, but dreams: theater costumes, camera equipment, college tuition. His phone buzzed again, Mr. Richardson this time, Proud of you today. Your father would have been too. Jordan stared at the message. Not his biological father. He realized. Mr. Richardson had become a sort of father figure over the past months, mentoring him, preparing him for college, teaching him about more than just money and success. You okay? Tommy asked, noticing his expression. Yeah. Jordan put the phone away. Just thinking about how much has changed. Not everything, Tommy said. We're still us? Jordan looked around their new living room. Photos on the wall showed their journey. The old apartment, the night shift at Yale, the rescue, the new house, Lisa's play. A family growing stronger together. You're right, Jordan said. We're still us. Just more. Later that night, Jordan walked through Yale's campus one last time as an outsider. Next semester, he'd be a student here. The buildings wouldn't change, but his place in them would. He passed the lake, calm now under a clear sky. The plaque caught the moonlight, his name etched in metal. Frank was locking up the maintenance office. Last night's shift? Jordan asked. Nah. Frank tossed him a key. Still need someone to train the new kids. Show them how it's done right. Jordan caught the key, familiar weight in his palm. Once a janitor, always a janitor, he joked. Once someone who sees what needs doing and does it, Frank corrected. No matter what it cost them. They walked to their cars together, Frank's old pickup and Jordan's sensible Honda. Different vehicles heading to different homes, but connected by something stronger than circumstance. You know what I think? Frank said before getting in his truck. That lake didn't just change your life. It changed all of ours. Made us remember what matters. Jordan watched Frank drive away, then looked back at the campus. Tomorrow, Lisa would perform or play again. Tommy would film it. His mother would cry happy tears. Mr. Richardson would probably call with more advice about college. Normal things. Family things. The kind of moments that made life worth saving. He got in his car and drove home, passing the old apartment building out of habit. Mrs. Rodriguez still had her lights on, probably watching late-night TV. The new house was bright when he pulled up, lights in every window. No more saving electricity, no more sitting in darkness to cut costs. Inside, Lisa had finally taken off her Annie wig. Tommy was editing the play video. Their mother was making hot chocolate. The real kind, not the cheap powder mix. Want some? She offered. Jordan took the mug, breathing in the rich chocolate smell. Thanks, Mom. Good day. He thought about his speech, the maintenance staff celebration, Lisa's play, Frank's key, Mr. Richardson's message. Thought about the lake, the cold, the choice that had changed everything. Yeah, he said. Really good day. Outside, the moon shone on their new yard, their new life. But inside, they were the same family that had survived 7 years of struggle. The same people who knew the value of work, of dignity, of seeing others. Just with more chances to show it. Jordan sipped his hot chocolate, surrounded by the warmth of family and the promise of tomorrow. Some people thought his story was about money, about a poor kid getting lucky. But he knew better. It was about choices, about seeing people when others looked past them, about doing what's right, no matter the cost, about remembering where you came from, even when life takes you somewhere else. And most importantly, about family, the one you're born with and the one you find along the way. Living proof that the richest things in life can't be measured in dollars. Just in love and courage, and in the strength to keep swimming when the current pulls you under.